Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
On October 15th, 1948, the greatest college basketball coach in American history and my boyhood hero, John Whiddon, walked into his dressing room with four of these, old school tube socks to say the least, and a pair of Chuck Taylor cloth high-top tennis shoes. He was barefoot when he walked into the room with very experienced full scholarship players waiting on him. And he sat down and very quietly said, "Men, I'm going to show you how to put on your socks, and then I'm going to show you how to lace up your shoes." And this man meticulously did that very thing in front of them, probably to their astonishment. And then he looked up at him and he said this. He said, "We are going to do the small things well so that the great things can come about." What Coach Whiddon was telling his players, and now the world long after he's passed with that story, is that it's about the fundamentals in life. It was about the fundamentals in basketball, and it's the same for this generation. And I believe while we're honoring a member of the greatest generation of America as we know them, I believe this generation can be the greatest generation. Now that will not happen without two things: a great challenge, which we don't want to wish on anyone, but that's what the greatest generation faced. And if that great challenge comes about, then the character and the teaching to handle it. And that responsibility then lies with those of us in this room today. It's so good to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm just going to spend a few minutes with you, giving you some of those fundamentals that we believe will make this generation successful. As you can see, there's a cover of my latest book. I wrote 3 books when I was in the investment business. I owned my own company for 30 years and sold that 4 years ago, and decided to write a book completely different, and I actually wrote it for my 4 children, who are all millennial ages 18 to 25. And I did it because I looked around at the culture, and first of all, I said, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And also, how are my children going to have the same opportunities that I have, or that I was afforded by my parents and my grandparents? Mainly their teaching. And so we've developed various workshops, as was mentioned. One of those is the 10 old school keys to professional success. And like Coach Whiddon putting on his socks and his shoes, when I tell you what these are, you may think, wow, that is very simple and very fundamental. But I tell you, I think we are a generation of mentors and teachers that may have, A, forgotten some of the fundamentals ourselves, and B, certainly forgotten to teach those because of the age of distraction that we live in today, with what I call the tyranny of the rectangles that surround us everywhere we go. They're literally in our pockets as I speak. So let me give you 3 of the 10 keys, a very quick version, obviously, that I believe will bring success to this generation. A survey was done of over 300 Fortune 500 companies, and they asked them, what are the skills that are missing among the millennial generation? And they said 93% of them responded, soft skills, interpersonal communication skills. You know, one of the chapters in my book, chapter 6, is about interviewing. And I tell young people that are coming out of college to interview for their first job, when they're asked that very difficult question, why should we hire you? The answer is simple. I know how to communicate well, I'm coachable, and I love to learn. Wouldn't you hire somebody that answered that question that way? Because that's the fundamental elements you need to teach somebody to be a great employee. Well, with that answer, the first key, I would tell you, is simply words. Winston Churchill said that words are the only things that last forever. The scripture says that words have the power of life and death. So I categorize words as simply the most important thing in life. And yet, we have a generation, and even ourselves, that are lacking in terms of how to use words as productive and effective tools. First thing we want to do is scrub vocabularies, and you saw a little bit of that on the clip that we showed just a moment ago. What are some of the words that perhaps we could use scrubbing in our current vocabulary, either with ourselves, but especially as we think about our children and grandchildren that are in the millennial generation? Any come to mind at all? Exactly. Like is probably the one at the top of the list. So, actually, seriously, awesome. We mentioned awesome. What happens when awesome is used for everything that you perceive to be good?
You tune it out.
You tune it out. And so its meaning does what?
It's meaningless.
It's meaningless. That is exactly right. Awesome is a great word. Use it, but use it properly. And so the first thing we do is we scrub their vocabulary. And by the way, part of scrubbing the vocabulary, again, doesn't mean eliminate those words completely. It means to bring them to your consciousness because they're not realizing how often they say those words. So just becoming aware, it's like asking the right question is halfway to the right answer, same concept. And so we scrub the vocabulary, and so instead of awesome, what if you had a young man or a young lady that was coming to interview with you or working for you, and instead of saying awesome, they said the word exceptional. That's exceptional. Or how about this one? That's extraordinary. That is so unusual that when a young person says that, it almost brings the conversation to a stop. And you look at them and you say, wow, who is this person? They have the it factor. They're wise beyond their years. I always tell my children the greatest compliment they could get is for someone my age to say to them, you know what, you're wise beyond your years. I love to hear that said about my kids. And a phrase like first things first. When you hear somebody say that, first things first, those three words tell you so much about the person using the words. They're organized. They don't get ahead of themselves. They're sequential thinkers. They've got a plan. These are all characteristics. And so we teach the kids to use 30 words and phrases that give power to their vocabulary. And as we make them aware of these words, and we'll go into companies, and we'll have games. There's 30 for a reason, because every month of the year, except one, has at least 30 days. And so an organization can take a word or a phrase a day, and everybody has fun and laughs and talks and see how many times they can use that word. But you know what happens? When they're in front of a customer or they're in an important meeting, those words come out naturally, and they're seen as wise beyond their years. So the first one, again, so simple, so fundamental. Upgrade their vocabulary after scrubbing those words that we lean on and that we shouldn't. And we all do it. I do it as well. The second one would be, again, so simple but so forgotten. If we had a scale of connectedness, okay, in the world of communication, what would be the simplest way to communicate with one another today? It involves technology. What is it? Text. And it's also the least connecting. Why? You can't make it long. You can't send it to a lot of people. You could, but it's annoying, right? You can't put pictures or signatures or salutations. Again, you can, but it's not practical. It's like the old walkie-talkie when I was a kid, isn't it? Serves a great purpose. But in terms of connecting with the other person, I would give it a 1 out of 10. What would come next? What do you think?
Email.
Email is correct. Email, you can send to many people. You can put your picture. You can put your logo. You can say dear. You can say thank you respectfully. You can put more in it. You can send it to 1,000 people. It connects better. Then what comes? What kind of communication comes next on the scale? Not face-to-face yet. Telephone. Isn't it interesting? We didn't even think about the telephone because we all hate answering phone calls now, don't we? Because the other's so... But what do you get with a phone call that you don't get with those electronic methods?
Voice, personality.
Tone, personality, real-time exchange. So let's give it a 6 out of 10. Then comes what? This nice lady said it just a moment ago. Face-to-face. What do you add in that to connect? Body language. The eyes, you know, seeing the whites of the eyes, that's why people get on planes and go all the way across the country. In fact, somebody asked Joe Torre one time, why don't you go up in the press box and watch the baseball game from the press box? They do it in football. It seems like it might give you an advantage. You could see what's going on all over. You could tell the outfielders to move, etc. And he said, no, I want to see their eyes. He wanted to be close enough to see their eyes, the window of the soul, right? And that's what one-on-one communication gives you. And so I would give that a 9 out of 10. So what are we missing that gives you the 10 out of 10? A letter, a handwritten note. Now think about this for a second. I visited with a lady that is the head of HR for a Fortune 500 company. You don't get there without conducting a lot of interviews. And I said, in your career, how many people sent you a handwritten note after the interview? And I was shocked to hear that it was 3 people. I said, how many of those 3 got the job? All 3. Now, that's not a scientific survey, and I'm sure they were qualified. But the point is made. Imagine a generation that will start writing something as simple as handwritten notes. And not just any handwritten note. Here is an example of mine. I'd pass it around, but there's too many of us. It's kind of a parchment card paper. On the front of it is simply my name in a typewriter font. Okay, nostalgia sells. That's why you see it so much on TV and commercials. And then inside I would use brown ink. What documents might I be trying to evoke with brown ink? The founding documents. Tells them just a little bit more about me, possibly a clue. At the top I would put a verse or a saying from someone I know they would connect with. For example, if you're a golfer, I look at this beautiful golf course. If you're an avid golfer, I might put an Arnold Palmer quote up here, because why? He just recently passed away, and that would probably connect with that person. Then I would always put the date, and I'd always include at least 3 sentences. By the way, just a little trivia here for the Aggies in the audience. The original ink on the founding documents was maroon. So you make the connection on that. It actually faded to brown, so I'm kind of proud of that. All right, I'm an Aggie. It's out. And I've got all my millennials are Aggies except one, and I don't know what we're going to do with her. But at any rate, but the point, why is a handwritten card number 10? Well, a 10 on a scale of 10. First of all, nobody has your handwriting. So it's literally like giving someone your fingerprint. And forget about saying my handwriting's not any good. First of all, it improves as you do it. You've just forgotten. You've gotten away from that fundamental. And it means something no matter how bad it is. It's still you. How many handwritten cards are thrown away typically? 0. Well, it depends on what it says, I suppose. Right. But I've got drawers full of these at both work and at home. People keep them, and you know what? They mean so much more the second and third times they're read. I had a lady at a Rotary Club earlier this week. I just mentioned this, and she teared up. And then she told the group, I remember my boss giving me a handwritten note 17 years ago when my father passed away. And she was choked up because of just thinking about it. So there's nothing more powerful in terms of communicating than a handwritten note. I use stamps. You saw Batman there in my little video. So guess what? They make Batman stamps. So if you come to my workshop, you'll likely get a card that has a Batman stamp. There's also presidents. For veterans, there's Purple Hearts. Even if they didn't get a Purple Heart, it would mean something to them. And then, of course, there's the old-fashioned pickup trucks. So every aspect of your communication when it comes to a handwritten card. Imagine an organization implementing something like this that goes out to their customers and their clients. Huge. Fundamental from ages past, but because it's so rare today, it's going to be almost like a new strategy. It's actually kind of crazy to think about it that way. I tell young people if they will write one handwritten card every day for the rest of their career and take the weekends off, they cannot fail. And I believe that. Bush, Clinton, Lincoln, Mozart, Napoleon, we could go on and on about those. Jefferson wrote 20,000 letters in his career. And then the third and final one I would tell you, I tell this generation, the millennials, that if you will read one book a month that you do not have to read, you cannot fail in your career. Americans read 0.4 books a year on average. 44% of Americans never even step into a bookstore in a year. And so this is a way, again, to set yourself apart. We are no longer a well-read nation, and therefore those that will choose to do so will rise above and stand out. I tell them if they'll read 2 books a month for the rest of their career, they will be a C-level executive or they will own their own company one day. And I truly believe that's how important reading is. And I'm talking about deep, contemplative reading where discernment and wisdom are acquired, not articles and blogs and emails. That's knowledge. What we need in the workplace and in this society today is not more knowledge and information. We need more discernment and wisdom. And those in this generation that will realize that and rise above, hopefully my kids and grandkids and your children and grandchildren, will run the communities, run the country, run the companies, and make a huge difference. Last thing I'll tell you, we always end each workshop with a challenge coin. So these have already made a presence here today. And so firefighters, Rotary clubs, police officers, military personnel, you've probably received these. I collect them. And so we decided to do one for the old school. Our challenge coin actually says challenge on one side. And then on the other side, it says opportunity. And so the idea that we try to get across here is that with every challenge in life comes an equal or greater opportunity. And so as the coin of life flips, if it comes up opportunity, what do you have? We have an opportunity. Go for it. Walk through that door and see what happens. But as it so often does, perhaps more often, it comes up challenge. And so when it comes up challenge, what do you have?
An opportunity.
You have an opportunity. If you can live your life with that attitude, another word for that is perseverance. And so no matter which way the coin of life lands, you're playing it with a two-sided coin if you simply have this attitude. And so I always have trouble choosing who to give my coin away to, but it's obvious in this group. I don't know if I didn't hear it mentioned, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I think Mr. Hoxie was also a veteran of World War II, the greatest generation, a pilot, is that correct? Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's obvious this has to go to him, even though I don't want to take away from those that you've received, but I'd like to give this to you. And thank you for your service.
I think that class that he's teaching is excellent. Those seminars would be so beneficial. I know from my perspective, it's important that my 8-year-old grandson knows how to look at you, shake your hand, say his name, and remember your name when he walks away.
Getting back to being a little more personable, eye contact, facial expression, handshakes, that kind of stuff, I think would make a huge, huge difference.
I think that the information that Jim has presented during today's presentation is spot on, and it's long needed.
He was concise, to the point, and all things were just going to help people with their own personal success.
Having hired hundreds of young people, Jim's speech was right on target with exactly the challenges they have in an interview process and what an employer is looking for. It's very difficult to see the quality in a person if they can't express themselves old school style.